Yeah, firstly, thank you for organizing this. I would like to thank Biochar Journal for organizing this. And also I would like to thank those who are attending this webinar. So the title of my presentation is Reconciling Soil Health Benefits with Carbon Sequestration Value of Organic Amendments. Now this is the outline of my presentation. I will be briefly introducing organic amendments, the volume and the value. Then I will talk about carbon stabilization in organic amendments. There are two approaches. One is immobilizing the carbon in the organic amendments. The other one is converting the organic amendments into biochar. Then I will discuss about organic amendments and carbon storage using these two approaches. Then I will discuss about organic amendments and soil health. Finally, briefly, the value of organic amendments on crop productivity. Based on that, I will provide some conclusions. Now, organic amendments. A large volume of organic amendments are produced globally. For example, around 3,800 million tons of plant residues, around 100 million tons of biosolid, around 7,000 million tons of animal manure are produced globally. These organic amendments can be used as a source of carbon and also nutrients, and to improve the soil health, what we call co-benefits. I will explain some of the value of these organic amendments on soil health benefits. In Australia, we produce something like 198 million tons of organic amendments that include biosolid, various manures, and crop residues. Now, these organic amendments provides around 80 million tons of carbon, around 1.56 million tons of nitrogen, around 0.5 million tons of phosphorus, around 3 million tons of potassium as nutrients and carbon. In Australia, the annual sales of fertilizer is around 5.4 million tons. Now this provides around 1, 0.4, and 0.2 million tons the nutrients provided by organic amendments. The blue bars are the nutrients supplied by fertilizer. In addition to this, Australian soil can store around 6.3 billion tons of carbon in the top 0 to 10 centimeter. So the message is, if we can capture all these organic amendments, it can provide a significant source of carbon and nutrients. As you can see from the bar diagram, if we are able to capture all the nutrients from organic amendments, we may not even need to put fertilizer, but it is impossible to capture all these nutrients from organic amendments. Therefore, organic amendments provide a significant source of carbon and nutrients. Now, these organic amendments have multifunctional values that include carbon sequestration, soil health in relation to physical fertility, chemical fertility, biological fertility, soil remediation in the case of soil contaminated with heavy metals, and also these organic amendments can be used as a nutrient and microbial carrier. For example, biochar can be used as a microbial carrier. Traditionally, peat is used for rhizobium carrier. Increasingly, there is a restriction on the use of peat. Therefore, these organic amendments can be used as a microbial carrier. So that's the volume and the value, or the multifunctional value of organic amendments. Now we can discuss about the carbon stabilization in these organic amendments, how we can stabilize the carbon in these organic amendments so that when we add to the soil, we can achieve carbon sequestration. There are two approaches. One is immobilizing the carbon within the organic amendments using some amendments, or converting the organic amendments into biochar, then adding to the soil. So I'll be talking about these two approaches. Applying organic amendments could increase carbon storage in soil and contribute significantly to the reduction of greenhouse gas emission. The major problem with the use of organic amendments for carbon sequestration or carbon storage in soil is the relatively fast rate of decomposition. Therefore, they will become a source for greenhouse gas emission by releasing CO2 or even nitrous oxide. The rate of decomposition of organic amendments can be reduced by stabilizing the carbon in the organic amendments or converting the organic amendments into biochar. This will enhance the carbon sequestration in soil from organic amendments, but it can impact the soil health benefits of organic amendments. That is why the title of my presentation is how you can reconcile the health benefit of organic amendments with the carbon sequestration value. So what we did, we took poultry manure, compost, and also converted the manure into biochar. In addition to that, we added some clay materials, iron and aluminum oxide and allophonic clay, to both poultry manure and the poultry manure biochar. Now the bar diagram gives the rate of decomposition of the carbon released. The blue are for the manure and the red are for the biochar. So you can see by converting the poultry manure into biochar, you reduce the carbon release. The number on the top of the bar is what is known as half-life. That is the number of days it takes to decompose 50%. So it took around 140 days in the case of poultry manure, but it took more than 3,000 days in the case of biochar. So therefore, by converting into biochar, we can reduce the decomposition. More importantly, by adding clay amendments to poultry manure, we can reduce the rate of decomposition. It may not be as effective as converting into biochar, but it drastically decreases the rate of decomposition compared to pure poultry manure compost. There was no effect of adding clay material to the decomposition of poultry manure biochar because biochar is already stable. So the addition of these clay amendments, they decrease the rate of decomposition. For example, in the case of iron oxide, organic amendments, organic carbon complexes with iron, thereby reducing the rate of decomposition. So the message is the rate of decomposition can be reduced by adding clay amendments or by converting into biochar. Now the problem could be by adding clay amendments, you may impact the soil health benefits of this co-compost. So we look at the effect of co-compost, that is poultry manure with clay amendments on water stable aggregates, acid physical fertility, and mineralizable nitrogen. So you can see that by adding poultry manure and the co-composted products, there was increase in water stable aggregates compared to soil alone. And there was no effect of adding clay amendments mineralizable nitrogen. Again, by adding poultry manure and the co-composted product, there was increase in mineralizable nitrogen. There was a slight decrease in the case of adding aluminum oxide as an amendment to stabilize the carbon, because aluminum can be toxic. So the message is co-composted product, that is poultry manure with clay addition, increase carbon sequestration and also improve both the physical soil structure in this case and the chemical fertility of the soil. There could be some effect on the availability of phosphorus when we add clay material to compost. So the message here is carbon stabilization in organic amendments can be achieved by two approaches: co-composting organic amendments like poultry manure with clay material. We use allophonic clay, which is very effective in retaining carbon. The other approach is converting the organic amendments into biochar. So that's the first message. Organic amendments can decompose fast, thereby releasing greenhouse gas. But we can reduce the rate of decomposition by adding clay to compost or by converting into biochar. Now let us look at organic amendments and carbon storage. So what we did is we monitored the carbon distribution under field condition using the manure and the clay stabilized manure in a sandy soil at the rate of 20 tons per hectare. So the bar on the left-hand side gives the amount of carbon. The blue one is for the clay stabilized manure, and the red one is just the manure itself. So the carbon remaining in the soil increase with depth, which is expected because decomposition is much faster close to the surface. There was a greater retention of carbon from clay stabilized manure than from the manure alone. So the amount of carbon remained in the soil after 1 year was, we started with 20 tons. The amount of carbon remained is around 13 and 17 tons in the case of manure and clay stabilized manure, indicating a net loss of 32% in the case of manure, only 12% in the clay stabilized manure. So therefore, by adding clay, you can retain the carbon for a longer period. There were reports of adding red mud. Red mud is a waste material from aluminum extraction. It's full of iron. Addition of red mud to sandy soil has led to an increase of carbon because the iron can hold on to the carbon in the soil. Also, top dressing sandy soil with subsoil clay, what we call clay delving, that is inverting the clay onto the surface, because our soils are duplex soil, sandy soil on the top, clay soil on the bottom. So by bringing the clay to the top, you can retain more carbon. So the message is, by adding clay to the soil or by adding clay to the organic amendments, we can increase the carbon storage. So the other approach is biochar. So you can see that the left side is normal carbon cycle. The carbon is added through photosynthesis, through biomass, and the carbon is released back through respiration. That is the normal carbon cycle. In the case of biochar, around 50% of the carbon is retained. Biochar is produced by pyrolyzing carbon-based organic residues at high temperature under anaerobic condition. So biochar retains more than 50% of the carbon in the photosynthetic biomass. So when we add the biochar prepared from the biomass, we can increase the carbon sequestration. Now, if you look at this table on the top, biochar consists of a small fraction of what we call labile carbon 4, mostly dissolved organic carbon, but majority is recalcitrant carbon. That takes years to decompose. So therefore, biochar can be used for long-term storage of carbon in the soil, thereby contributing to climate change mitigation strategies. Now, carbon storage, biomass versus biochar. So you can see that in the case of biomass, which can be crop residues, it decomposes within a year. But when you convert into biochar, it takes long period to get it decomposed. Therefore, you contribute to carbon sequestration. So biochar application can be considered as a strategy to achieve carbon credit in agriculture. In Australia, biochar is allowed to get carbon credit, but the only restriction currently, the feedstock material to produce biochar needs to be derived from the farm itself, not external sources such as biosolid. So the farmers cannot buy biochar produced from biosolid, put it into the farm to get carbon credit. They have to use whatever available within the farm, mainly the crop residues or manure, to convert into biochar so that they can get carbon credit. So we look at how to stabilize carbon in organic amendments by adding clay or by converting into biochar. Then we look at whether these two approaches contributes to carbon storage in the soil by adding co-composted, that is organic amendments with clay, we can retain the carbon for a longer period. Similarly, by converting into biochar, we can keep the carbon for a longer period so that we can get carbon credit. Now, briefly, we look at organic amendments and soil health. So what we did is we undertook a meta-analysis for various forms of organic amendments: manure compost, green waste compost, food waste compost, biosolid, and biochar. Now, this is a typical meta-analysis diagram. On the x-axis, it gives the change in soil properties. Negative means decrease compared to adding organic amendments. Positive means by adding organic amendments, you increase those properties. So you can see by adding organic amendments, we increase water fill pore space, which indicates how much water you can store, hydraulic conductivity. So water fill pore space gives an indication of soil structure. So the message here is, by adding organic amendments, you can improve the soil physical properties. But there are some exceptions. For example, in some cases, by adding biochar, which is very fine material, it can block the pores, it can reduce the hydraulic conductivity. Overall, by adding organic amendments, you improve soil physical fertility. So what we did was, we examined the effect of various organic amendments: manure compost, green waste compost, food waste compost, biosolid, and biochar. Organic amendments application increases the water holding capacity. This is for the control soil, and these are with the organic amendments. And as expected, the effect of organic amendments application on water holding capacity was higher in a sandy soil compared to clay soil, because that's the sandy soil green bar. So by adding organic amendments, there's a much more increase in the case of sandy soil. Of course, clay soil still have higher water holding capacity. In the case of chemical fertility, the bar diagram all organic amendments contain some nutrients because they are derived from plant material or manures. Therefore, they all contain some level of nutrients. So we did a similar meta-analysis for various nutrients in soil: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur. Now this bar gives the values from a large number of publications. So this is the range. We can do all kinds of statistics on this. But the important message here is, by adding organic amendments, invariably increase the nutrient content. That is why the change in the property is always positive, because by adding organic amendments, invariably you increase the nutrient content. Most organic amendments contain a significant amount of nutrients, such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium and sulfur, thereby leading to an increase in the nutrient content of soil. Finally, some biological properties. Here we look into basal respiration and enzyme activity and microbial biomass carbon. This is again a meta-analysis, and this arrow is the range from a large number of publication data. Positive means an increase, negative means a decrease in that particular property. Again, organic amendments improve soil biological fertility as measured by these properties. Again, there could be some decrease, as in the case of biosolid, because biosolid can contain some heavy metals. Therefore, there could be some decrease in enzyme activity or basal respiration. So the message is, addition of organic amendments increase the physical fertility, the chemical fertility, and the biological fertility. Organic amendments induce or increase soil biological activity, which can be attributed to a number of reasons: co-location of various resources in organic amendments that include carbon and nutrients. The microbes also require carbon and nutrients, so the organic amendments provide both. And also, organic amendments improve the physical and chemical conditions for microbial activity. For example, organic amendments can have a pH buffering value. So organic amendments provide optimum condition for the microbial activity. Number 3, in some soil, there could be contaminants which can inhibit microbial activity. So by adding organic amendments, we can reduce the toxicity of these contaminants. That is, the sorption and inactivation of microbial growth inhibiting substances that could include heavy metals. For example, adding organic amendments complexes heavy metals like lead and cadmium, which can be toxic to microbes. So by deactivating these toxic materials, we can improve the microbial activity and function. So organic amendments can help to improve the biological activity and biological fertility of the soil. So we look at the multifunctional value of organic amendments and how we can improve the stabilization of carbon in the organic amendments, thereby reduce the rate of decomposition and thereby contributing to carbon storage through two approaches, by adding clay and also by converting into biochar. Then we look at the value of these organic amendments in carbon storage. By co-composting with clay, how it can improve or increase the carbon storage in soil, or by converting into biochar, how you can improve carbon storage and can get carbon credit. Then we look at how these organic amendments, whether stabilized or unstabilized organic amendments, and also the biochar, improve the physical, chemical, and biological fertility of the soil. Briefly, what is the value of organic amendments on crop production? Now, I know this data looks very complicated. Now, again, this one, a meta-analysis by Ma et al. In 2023. They used something like 13,000 field trials and gives the relationship between soil organic carbon and yield. So by increasing the carbon, you can increase the yield. So the yield increases with increasing carbon. There's some optimum values. In the case of wheat, is between 1.27 to 1.34. So in the case of rice, it is at much higher level. Now, they contributed this difference between the crops to the nitrogen requirement of the crops, because most of the organic amendments contain significant of nitrogen. So therefore, by increasing the soil organic carbon, you are increasing the nitrogen content of the soil. So this difference between the crops for the optimum level of soil organic carbon is attributed to the difference in the nitrogen requirement between these crops. But the message is sequestering soil organic carbon contributes to soil health in terms of physical health, chemical health, and biological health, and also it contributes to carbon sequestration, and also these organic amendments provide nutrients. These will lead to improving crop yield where soil management is optimized. So therefore, we look into the value and the volume, a multifunctional value and the volume of organic amendments. If we can capture all the carbon, all the nutrients in the organic amendments, that can contribute to significant reduction in greenhouse gas emission through carbon storage, and also it can provide nutrients. We look into carbon stabilisation in the
DEP had assisted Dikoloi, I think, from Tenya thing to major places. Tenya thing bringing to Hansi, and then Buan collect from Hansi. Tenya thing bringing to
finally,
and then
the conclusions.
No.
Carbon sequestration in soil is an important strategy to manage climate change resulting from greenhouse gas emission. Applying organic amendments, including biochar and compost to agricultural land, increases carbon storage. Carbon enhances the physical, chemical, and biological fertility of the soil, thereby increasing agricultural production. Co-composting of organic amendments with clay or converting organic amendments in biochar is effective in the stabilization of carbon in the soil. The stabilization of carbon in organic amendments using clay or conversion into biochar not only maintains the soil health value, but also add to the long-term carbon pool. That is what I said. The title of my presentation is Reconciling the Soil Health Benefit of Organic Amendments with Carbon Sequestration Value. So we can achieve both by adding organic amendments. But the real challenge in Australia, is a tropical country, is keeping the carbon in the sandy soil, because soils are also very sandy. The sandy soils are not holding carbon under Mediterranean climate condition. Finally, the take-home message from my presentation. Number one, organic amendments enhance soil health, thereby increasing agricultural production. In relation to the specific objective of this presentation, the carbon sequestration value of organic amendments can be enhanced by stabilization of organic amendments using clay material or converting the organic amendments into biochar without compromising the soil health benefit of organic amendments. As I indicated, it is not how much carbon we are adding, how long we can preserve that carbon. The long-term preservation of carbon is as important as carbon inputs in recarbonizing the soil, thereby contributing to recarbonizing agriculture. What I call it, carbon for soil health, not soil for carbon wealth. What I mean is, we need to target and we need to aim to add carbon to the soil to improve the soil health. We shouldn't be targeting soil to get carbon credit. By adding carbon to the soil, we will improve the soil health, and crop productivity. In that process, we will get carbon credit. So the Australian farmers are more focused on increasing the soil health by adding more carbon in the form of organic amendments. In that process, they can also achieve carbon credit. Once again, thank you for listening to my presentation. I took exactly 40 minutes. Thank you.